Welcome to Purpose After Sports, where we interview athletes to share their post-sport journeys and explore how they are reinventing what it means to compete. Today, we are here with Bella. So I knew I had to get her on because I think her story and her experience as a college athlete is something really cool. She turned being a college athlete into something bigger, and she is now coaching and mentoring and working with athletes every day to help them grow. And I think it's really interesting to see her story and what it actually looks like behind the scenes of coaching athletes and being in that role. It's a little bit different sometimes than a lot of people can assume. So, Bella, thank you so much for taking time in your schedule to be on with us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's so exciting.
So, Bella, when you first got into coaching, what is something that you didn't expect getting into this role?
So just all of honestly, like all the behind the scenes work that goes into coaching. When you're a player, you know that coaches are obviously putting in work behind the scenes, but you don't really know how much is going into that. So yeah, just putting like my nose to the grindstone and being able to, analyze players and look at videos and being able to, schedule games and practices and lessons and all of that combined. It's a lot, but it's good.
So take me and the audience back to when softball became a thing in your life. Was it a one sport and you knew that was it? Were there multiple sports in your story?
Well, softball started for me when I was very, very young. I since I could pick up a ball, to be honest. So around the ages of, 5 or 6. So that's when softball started for me. But when I was younger, I played basketball, I did dance and gymnastics. So I was kind of all over the place. I just liked being athletic and doing different sports and having different sport like hobbies, and just being involved in a team. And I'm just a very competitive person in general. So just being able to have different types and levels of competitiveness is something that I grew to have like since I was little. But yeah, the love of softball started when I was very, very young, and I knew that that was my for sure sport that I wanted to carry on the rest of my life, regardless if I was playing in high school, college, after college. I just wanted to be involved in it. And yeah, so that was definitely my number one out of everything that I've done. So
Now, did your love just spark of the different things that softball brought to you, or were there different mentors, coaches that helped bring that passion with you?
So I would say my dad was my biggest influence. So I grew up with my dad, single parent, and he really was dedicated and was always out there with me. Like so when I grew up, I didn't have any type of like hitting lessons, fielding lessons. I didn't do that. I was outside with my dad in the yard every single day. And that I saw was just pure just dedication and just being there for me and being able to build me into the player and now coach that I am today. It all stems from him. So I would say he was the most influential person in my life. So
I think that a lot of people can assume, especially in this day and age where you need the best trainer and you need to be, dropping all this money into this program and things like that, when that can be beneficial. But even if you don't have access to those resources, if you really want something, you're going to figure out a way, and you might have to get a little
absolutely.
creative, and it might just be in your backyard or makeshifting some things that you have around the home that if you want something, you got to figure out how to work for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I didn't have access to nearly as much as all the kids have access to now. And just how much the sport of softball and baseball have developed over the years. And people have access to social media now. Like I didn't really have that growing up, or at least not to the level that it's at now. So when I was learning, I was just learning by doing and learning from my mistakes. And it's at home or on a field. And yeah, so you had mentioned that, if you don't have access to those things, like just being able to just get outside and make it happen. I'm very big on especially when they're young, when kids are, in their youth era, like getting into sports, like it's just about playing. It's just about getting outside And yes, like going to lessons is very beneficial, but if, nothing against parents or anything, but just get outside and play with your kid. That's really all that they need at a very young age. And as they grow and develop and then they really get really seriously more dedicated to the sport, yeah, you can find um, a hitting coach or fielding coach or whatever avenue you want to go down. But I'm just a very, very big advocate on just being outside and just playing, which I feel like just doesn't, it almost doesn't exist anymore. Like
Yeah.
people are, yeah, it's crazy. Like I don't ever see just free will, like recreational, like just playing outside just to play. And I feel like that's really missing in the love and passion of sports. Like it all stems from when they're younger, but if you're putting them into lessons in three different teams in that one sport, like it's just so much for a very young kid to go through. And sometimes just being at home and doing things on your own and just, I know I sound repetitive, but just playing outside, it's what's missing right now, what I think.
I agree a lot with your mindset and philosophy, and I think the same thing too, because I still every once in a while will pick up a basketball and go to a park and just shoot. And when I was younger, it'd be hard. You'd have to drive around to a couple to find an open one or to squeeze in somewhere. But now I feel like if I can go at any time and shoot, and there's no one out there really with me, and which is nice, but it's still like you said, you kind of look around and you're like, I was younger, everybody was just trying to be outside, trying to be on
Yeah.
a court. And some, had those big dreams of being a really big athlete, but a lot of times it was just like, just to get outside, just
Yes.
to have fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Like even when I played basketball when I was younger, like it was impossible to find a court. Like regardless if it was just a local basketball court outside or going to the Y or something, like it was hard because
Yeah,
people were just out and about, like just getting after it. And I feel like that just it just doesn't exist anymore, which is so like mind-boggling to me.
I agree. Okay, so getting into more of your story and more of your love for softball, talk to me about when you saw an avenue to continue playing in college.
So my recruiting process, I feel, was very delayed and it could have been better. I feel like I didn't have the right resources around me that really knew enough about recruiting. Like, I mean, I live in a small town in the smallest state. Like,
Mm.
I just didn't, I just didn't, I'm going to be honest, like, I really just didn't have that access. And it's, when it comes to having access, like, I did my own research and I figured out what I could do, but I kind of figured it out a little bit late. So when I was getting recruited, it was tough. So, I wound up at a D3 school, which is so great, and I was able to go down that avenue. I knew that I wanted to play in college. Personally, I think that if my recruiting process was a little bit better, I think my college avenue would have been a little bit different.
Hmm.
Yeah, so but either way, I'm still grateful for my college experience. And I knew at a very young age that I wanted to pursue softball as long as I possibly could. Whether that was, playing, coaching, whatever it may be. Like I just knew that this sport needs to be in my life for as long as it possibly can be. So, um like I said before, it was recognized at a very young age that I did want to pursue that in college and have that be a part of my journey.
Talk to me about the D3 experience. Had you had friends or teammates that had gone through it before? Were you kind of the first person to experience this? You were learning everything on your own?
A lot of it was on my own. I had fellow teammates that were also getting recruited at the same time, but they were on their own path, own journey. And a lot of my friends that I encountered that were going to school for sports, it wasn't for softball. It was
Mm,
for, basketball, mainly. And then there was a few softball players that I encountered that were getting recruited, but their recruiting process was also a little bit wonky, I'll
mm.
say. So we were just kind of all learning together in
Yeah.
a sense. Yeah, so it was interesting to say the least, but it was a lot of figuring it out on my own and reaching out and doing the research that I needed to do in order to play the sport that I love in college.
if you could give advice to some athletes that maybe are still, in that path and maybe have to figure it out on their own, what is some advice now looking back that you would give them?
That's a loaded question because I feel like there's a lot of advice that I could give. But I would say so all the kids have access to social media now. So I would say use that in the recruiting process to your advantage. And I will say specifically for softball and possibly baseball, like when you're going to sign up for tournaments where they're showcase tournaments and college coaches are going to be there, it's very rare nowadays that they're just going to the coaches like are just going to show up and just find you. You know,
Mm,
that I feel like that's a misconception in the recruiting process now, especially in softball and baseball. Like that avenue of going to showcase tournaments or being on a showcase team, you have to put in the effort behind the scenes to reach out to the coaches to let them know your schedule, to let them know your stats. Also check in with that coach's team, see how they're doing and being in communication with them and that team as much as possible. Um, like I said, it's very rare when you come across an elite athlete where they get noticed by everybody. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you know, it's typically elite, like high level athletes that get noticed and recognized without any communication.
yeah.
So you have to be able to put in the time and effort to get yourself noticed, not just by what you do on the field, but it's what you do outside of the field. So if your team has a program where like, oh, they'll stay after like during a practice and they'll go through like what the recruiting process looks like, how to write a recruiting email, like how to reach out to a coach. All those things I think need to be taken advantage of a little bit more. And just being able to put in that extra work because it's likely that you're not going to get recognized off rip in a showcase tournament where coaches are looking at other people already. You know, you're not on their list, you're not on their radar, and it's very rare for a coach to just come across you and be like, "Oh, that person right there. I like that person," you know? So, I think that would be my best advice.
No, I appreciate you getting real with our audience because I think it's very true. I think that you have to, if it's something you want to do, you have to be willing to put in the work. And I liked how you even talked about researching that program as well. Because yes, you can, send to the masses and all that stuff, but you got to take time to see what that program is, how they're doing, if your style of
Absolutely.
play fits in there, or you could help that team in some way, or maybe even see potential seniors and juniors. Do you believe there is even a possibility that they're looking for you in the upcoming year? So there's like tons of things to go into it, and not to mean that it's impossible or to make it seem more daunting, but
Right.
it's work. So you're stepping into a totally different level, and if you
Mhm.
want to be able to have a good experience, it's going to take a little bit of effort.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Like just being able to do that research about like the teams that you want to get on, about the coach, how their team is doing, who's their juniors and seniors. Are you able to like reach out and contact some of the players and get some information? Are you able to talk to the coaches? You know, sometimes you're not allowed to talk to the coaches during like in season in certain time frames. So being able to make connections elsewhere that are still involved with the team, like being able to do that just and I like how you mentioned, oh, are they looking for your skill sets? You know, are they looking for a person that who is you as a player and as a person? Like, do they need that on their team? And how can you incorporate yourself into that team? How can you make that puzzle piece fit? I think is a huge aspect of it.
Absolutely, it's a mini job interview and applications, and I think it's great practice. I mean, like you said, your elite athletes, they still are doing that in a different way, but I think it's great practice to learn not only what you want throughout the process, because you might start looking at schools and what you thought you had in your head, you start to look more into it and you're like,
Yeah,
no,
you're
this
like,
is
oh,
what I
this isn't for me.
wanted.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted. Or maybe you end up, having a couple communications or get to go on a visit, and you just don't gel. I mean, we're people blending people together. So there's tons of things to go into it. But yeah, I think that's great. insight for our athletes to take away of if you want it, it's going to require a little bit more work, but it could involve you having a much better experience and not just sitting in that waiting boat of I hope I get
Absolutely.
some attention or I hope that they see me because you might have a great showcase like you were talking about, but they still have this many people that already reach out to them that that's their real focus. So even just
Absolutely.
getting on their radar.
Mhm.
All right, let's go back to your story. Talk to me about you're going through your 4 years of college. When you notice that it's starting time to transition and what's next, what are the thoughts that are going through your head?
If I'm being bluntly honest, feeling a little bit lost in a sense. Um, softball's my life and a big part of it, and it still is. But, you dedicate so much of your time, energy, effort into something that you absolutely love, and that's a part of your routine since I was 6, like, so I've had that as a part of my life, like going to practices, going to games, planning on weekends to go to tournaments, and then all of a sudden it just stops. And you're just like, "Oh, this is a really weird feeling." Like, this is very odd. Like, at first, you're just like, "Oh, this is nice. Like, I don't have to do anything on the weekend." Like, you get a sense of like, "Oh, like I can breathe now," you know? But then after that, it's very weird. It's just a weird feeling. I don't really know how to describe it other than feeling a little bit lost in the transition from being a collegiate athlete to a regular person.
Now, when you were starting to feel that way, did you ever reach out to anyone? Did you kind of feel that, oh, with time, it'll figure itself out?
So, at first, I didn't put too much into it because I was coaching a travel team at the
Mm,
time. So that kind of helped in a sense with a little bit in my transition. Like, I was still involved with the sport. I was still going to, games, but now I'm on like the other side of the field, like I'm not playing, I'm coaching on the sidelines. So it's a little bit, it was just a little bit different of a feeling now that I'm coaching and I'm not being able to play on the field and get that same adrenaline rush that I used to get stepping on a field. So that was like a really weird point. And then I have reached out in the past, I did therapy for a couple of years because I was just in a very like weird mindset, and obviously I had my friends to rely on too, and just being able to lean on the people that I have in my small circle, I think that really definitely helped in my process. But I would also just always find a way to stay involved with the sport. I think it was probably like when around COVID time, like, actually hit and it really took over, then that's when I really felt, like, isolated
mm.
and that really hit me where, like, "Oh my gosh, I can't be on a field right now. I can't be giving lessons. I can't be coaching." And then I'm like, "Wow, but this is what it kind of feels like for a person who really doesn't do the sport anymore and, like, just
Yeah.
does is totally, like, done with it." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't like this feeling at all, so I need to figure out a way to stay involved." And that's kind of how my mindset flipped a little bit, so
I love that. So you had an opportunity to kind of stay with it. So it was like this slow transition, but then you also got to experience what it's like if potentially that sport was never in your life in any type of capacity and realizing that this is not how I want to live.
yeah, exactly. I was like, "Oh, I don't like this feeling at all."
So, did that kind of spark you wanting to get more intense with your coaching and your one-on-one sessions, or how did that spark into kind of that's where I want my job to go?
So, during COVID, this is kind of not off topic, but it leads into it, I promise. But, so when COVID hit, at first, isolation, whatever, couldn't be within like 6 feet of people. And then my gym that I went to was the first gym like in my area that was actually open and that would like allow people to come into the gym. And I was like, oh, this is nice. Now I can actually do something like athletic and like get some exercise in. It's like, okay. So then so the Instagram that I have now was originally a fitness Instagram, and
Mm,
I was just recording myself doing workouts and things like that, and there was a couple of posts that went semi-viral, I'd say, that just got a lot of views, a lot of likes. I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, this is working. But then there was like a point where, as COVID started like settling down a bit, and then like I still posted my workout videos, and then I was just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if like fitness influencer is like the route that I want to go down. Like, even though I love working out and getting active, and I was like, I don't know if this is it. So then I was like, you know what? I want to try posting some softball stuff because I feel
Yeah.
like because at first when this was going on, I was doing a little bit of research of how many softball influencers and baseball influencers. I was just seeing like who's in that market and seeing what they post, and I was like, I could definitely do that. So like I could definitely lean into this a little bit. So I think like from the process of what happened early COVID and then transitioning out of the fitness Instagram to then softball Instagram, which is what you see now, I think that kind of like helped my avenue of where I wanted to go down and how I kind of found that niche on the social media platform. And I was like, okay, this is a way that like softball can stay in my life, regardless if I get a billion views or not. Like, I don't really care. It's not really about the views and the likes or anything like that. It's more so about posting what I want to post about the sport that I love. And hopefully I can educate and motivate people along the way. So.
Now, with coaching, what do you think that shows up, but actually takes more time for athletes to develop as you've been building skills with these? As a lot of them, which I find are so cute. I love your youth videos of, and then the
Yeah.
progress of like where they are.
Mhm.
And that takes time because you can think like, oh, I'm going to be really good when I start. So what's that been with training some of the younger ones?
So with the younger ones, it's just as a coach, it's about having patience. And yeah, patience is a lot, but also um but also, and I think this doesn't only go for just like the little ones. I think this goes for all athletes, regardless of what age they are. Just figuring out how to explain and teach things and understand things in different ways. I think is a huge one. It's there might be like a drill that can be one size fits all, but it's how you explain the drill that might not make sense to one, well, but it'll make sense to a different person. So being able to figure out different creative ways on how to explain something to somebody to make it click in their head, I feel like that was a big one because as a player, you don't really think about different ways of how to explain things to somebody, of how to do something unless you're really one of those like leaders that take charge on the field and have that mindset already. And I think I did develop that like a teeny bit when I was playing in college. Like I was definitely always a leader on the field, but in the mindset of like explaining something to somebody, that's a little bit
Yeah.
different. It's a different type of leadership. Um so I think that was like my biggest hurdle when it came to coaching, just being able to find little niche ways of describing something that might, it might not even make sense to me, but when I explain to somebody else, totally clicks in their head. I'm like, okay, I'm so glad that made sense, and let's roll with it.
I
I
love
feel
that
like
aspect of coaching
yes.
because I think like when you and you can see, videos online of a really well put together clip of maybe athletes going out there and doing the dang thing. But
Hmm.
sometimes I wish there was bloopers of what it actually takes sometimes because you'll have three on the right page, four that are halfway in it, the other three
Yeah.
that have like didn't pay attention or like, what did you just say?
Yes, exactly. You pinpoint it perfectly. Oh my gosh. That's really what it is. That's what it is. Seriously.
So it's like getting them all together once you finally get it and you like I said, I love how you getting creative with your delivery. I talk about a lot because you do. Like they just everyone needs it sometimes it can be the same exact like you said, the same exact thing. They just need it in a tiny different way. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, cool, cool,
You're like,
cool,
"All
cool,
right, that
cool.
makes sense. All right, so now I have to lead into that way a little bit more when I explain like different things to you in the future now. Great."
Good, good, good. Um, okay. When you're coaching, do you think that um, there is pressure with helping the athletes? And is there pressure from the parents? And what kind of expectations have you faced?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an easy yes. There definitely is pressure. And, I'm in my, for total coaching years, regardless of age, I think I'm in my eighth year coaching now, I believe. Um, at first, though, figuring out like my philosophy and what I want to, push towards my athletes of how this program is going to run, I think figuring that out first was a lot of pressure in coaching, and then making sure I get buy-in from the parents and from the kids, of course. Um, like with what my mindset is and my expectations, and then having them on board with that and being 100% committed to that culture that I want to build, I think is a lot of pressure. But once you have that down and you have it completely like, okay, this is the baseline of like what I want my culture to look like, how I want this team to act, behave, produce for like different things. Like I think once that's down, it takes a little bit of the pressure off, and then it's just being able to be consistent with that and being able to keep the kids consistent with that as well. I think that's where I find my pressure. And then as far as parents go, that's a big one. Yes, of course there's pressure from parents, but it's very it's very kid focused, like their kid focused.
Mm,
It's not like pressure from them about like winning or losing. It's just about playing time and why is my kid not in? Why is my kid in a different position? They've never played that position before and da da da. And you're gonna encounter that anywhere you go. I mean, it's tough, and it's very like surprising though that that kind of attitude, I guess, from parents, like it's all at all ages now. It's very, very interesting. And especially at the older ages, like high school, you would think that high schoolers can speak up for themselves, but that's not the case. And I'll hear it from parents, and then I get pressure from them to put in their kid. And I'm sorry, but if your kid worked hard enough and I saw at least effort, like that's what I really care about is the
yeah.
effort. And I've had to say that to parents sometimes, like, look, like your kid might be a good athlete, but like they could be so much better if they put in all the extra time and effort like into practices, and then that would help them produce better in a game. But the thing is they're not putting in the effort during practice. So I'm not going to play them during a game. I would rather play someone that gives me 110% out on the field than someone who gives me a 10% of their 100.
Mm,
And I've had to say that before, and it's tough. And have we lost games possibly because of that reason? Sure, but it's going to teach them a lesson. Like if you start putting in that time and effort that I know that you can put in and produce the results that I know that you can produce, then we can get you more playing time. And most parents are understanding of it. And once I say it once, I'm pretty stern with
yeah.
how I state it. I lay it out for them and I go through my thought process and they get it. So I haven't really had any pushback,
Mm,
which is nice because once I have my definitive decision about like whether I'm playing someone or not and the reasons behind it, like I know what I'm doing follows my philosophy of coaching. And I'm sorry if you don't agree with that. Goodbye.
yeah.
Sorry. Like I'm very like blunt like that. If you don't like the way that I coach or the way that I do things and the way that things are handled, yeah, you can bring your concerns to me and yeah, I'll think about it. Sure. Like I'm not going to be completely closed-minded, but if it's things that I really truly believe in, like when it comes to the effort portion, for example, like effort is one of the biggest things that I look for. And I'm sorry, if you're not giving me the effort that I know you can give me, I'm not going to play you. It's just not it. So I think pressure from parents are just very like per player. It's not
Mm,
necessarily about winning or losing. And like I said, I haven't really gotten too much pushback when I've explained and stated my thought process about it, because
yeah.
then that means the player and parent is coming from a sense of like understanding. Like they're trying to understand me, I'm trying to understand them. It's just when like I think I've only encountered maybe one or two parents where it's just very closed-minded, but there's no way of getting through to them. But then, like, once that happens, then I'm like, all right, I don't know what to tell you. So, and then we
Yeah.
move on. So,
And I like how you talk about your coaching philosophy and how if once you find it and once you establish it, even though you feel strong, that it can be hard to continue to stand on those things. Because, like you said, um, you could have a really strong, talented player, but if your coaching philosophy is, I'm really big on effort and I'm going to continue to give that, role and playing time to people that continue to show up, sometimes I have to make the hard decision of maybe sacrificing a play or sacrificing a game or something like that because this is my philosophy and these are the type of players and the characters and the morals that I want throughout this team. With your philosophy, do you feel like it's changed in your 8 years of coaching from starting to now?
yeah, I feel like it's adjusted a little bit. I feel like the bare bones of my philosophy has stayed pretty much the same, but I feel like we live in a very different era, like with how people handle things and do things and move forward. So like in my philosophy right now, like it's teaching them about how to handle failure. I feel like when I was younger, I was just told like, okay, like get over it, do better, like get up, blah blah blah. And I feel like I have so many mixed emotions about it. But I feel like kids don't know how to handle failure too much, so it's a lot of teaching, like body language, and I'm teaching like high schoolers this. It's not even like it's little kids. It's high
Yeah.
school. So I already knew how to handle my body language by the time I got into high school. I knew how to handle my emotions. I knew how to handle everything. I was good. But there's kids now that, and it's a lot that I come across that just don't know how to process their emotions and then they result to shutting down. And
Mm,
and it's a complete shutdown. And then there's just no pulling them out of that hole. So I feel like it's very my philosophy now when it comes to coaching is very like almost like emotionally charged in a sense. Like I got to be able to teach them like emotional aspects of the game and how to handle things. And it's
yeah.
not and it's not like I feel like the players that I've encountered are so good, like, physically, making the plays, doing the things that they need to do, but as soon as they make that one mistake, boom, shut down and don't know how to handle their emotions. So I feel like it's almost like I don't wanna say therapy session, but, it's a lot of teaching, like, the emotional aspect of the game versus when I was younger and I was just told, "Get up, be better." That's literally what it was like. If I fell and, like, hurt myself, to rub some dirt on it, keep going, whatever, and but that's how I learned, and I don't know. Do people think it's, like, toxic coaching? Maybe. I personally don't mind that kind of coaching, but with the kids nowadays, like, you have to tread careful on how you coach them and
Yeah.
what's the fine line between being hard with them and then, like, being able to, like, flip a switch and, like, be that emotional support for them
Mm,
as well. So I feel like my philosophy in that aspect of coaching has developed a little bit more over time and changed, for, like, how to handle certain emotions, how to teach kids through that time, like, how to adjust and how to hit the reset button, like, deep breathing, all of those things. Like, I was never taught that when I was
yeah.
younger. So then, like, even when I first started coaching, my mindset was just be better, like, shake it off, think about it for 2 seconds and then forget about it and move forward, like, so it's a little bit different. It's more about figuring out, like, the process of how they go through things in their head and how to adjust that and make it better, so
I think it's one of my big ones that I keep looking at because that was one of the questions I really wanted to get to, and I'm so glad you started talking about it because um, it was do you see athletes that are so tied to their sport that it affects how they handle failure? And I think that's a huge thing that we're seeing now. And I love how you talked about the complete shutdown
Mm,
because I mean, body language is one, and it's something I'm sure you will continue to have to work through when you have the players that throw their hands up or visually mad and you're like this
yeah.
is not how we can react to certain situations, and then you have the ones that completely shut down where again you're like in a way and I want to be careful with how I word it. In a way it can become selfish, right? You're making
Oh,
this
100%. Yeah.
this moment you're so frustrated, you're starting to make this moment about you. Everyone already knows that
Mhm,
you're upset. Everyone,
mhm.
it would be weird if you weren't upset if you made the mistake. Everybody already knows. So you don't have to make it an outward experience. You don't have to let everyone in the stands know. We can keep going. We can handle, we have to reset. We have to keep moving forward. And so I'm glad you brought that up because I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about how
Yes,
we reset, how we move forward. Because failure is part of
absolutely.
life.
Oh,
You're getting a
100%.
great, easy lesson in sports, but
Mhm.
this is a constant thing that happens.
Yeah, it's great that you wanted to touch on that because I'm very like passionate about like just being a good teammate in that process, and being selfish is not being a good teammate, especially like emotionally in that way. Like in one of my posts on Instagram, I think it's under my how to be a teammate or how to reset, something like that. And one of the slides is like being selfless and putting other people and your team before you. Like, and I always tell my players, like, you're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to have emotions. Emotions are and can be a good thing during sports. It means that you care. But then when you shut down and you completely make it a big thing and you make it about yourself, and then now it's become cancerous, like your attitude and your emotions, and even you sitting and pouting on the bench while everyone up is up and standing on the fence, like cheering for their team, like people notice that, obviously, and it seems like you want them to notice. But if everyone talks about it. So like they're not focused on the game. They're now focused on you like, "Oh my gosh, why is she sitting down? Like she needs to like be better, blah blah blah." And like all the chitter chatter happens, and then the complete focus has now changed to something that I don't want to say is irrelevant, but at the time being it kind of is irrelevant to the game itself. So I'm very big on being selfless, and I kind of grew up with being a selfless teammate because when I get mad or frustrated at myself, I turn that around and flip like my anger into energy, and I just like yell and cheer for my teammates. And that's
Mm,
kind of how I want to like if I need to yell because I'm mad, I'm just going to cheer for my teammates. Like that's how I'm going to get it out of my system. I'm not going to sit
yeah,
there and pout on the bench and keep to myself and just be all mopey and sad face, blah blah blah. Being able to just turn that emotion into energy that you can put into the team in a positive way is a very, very big thing because I've encountered a few players on my past teams, and you know, I'm never not going to encounter that, you know, but it's I just feel like it's getting a little bit worse and worse where like I'm encountering this more and more now.
mm,
And yeah, so I feel like it's something happening in sports as a whole, not just in softball or not just like with the kids that I work with. I just feel like that's definitely something that I'm seeing is a little bit more prominent now, even though we've already stated like what our culture is, what our expectations are. Like words are just words, right? Actions is what shows, you know, and if you're not showing the actions, but you understand what we're saying, there's a disconnect somewhere, and we need to figure out how to move forward in a positive direction and not go down this dark hole of whatever you're trying to do. So,
absolutely.
mhm.
All right. So talk to our audience about you as a person. What have you learned about yourself through coaching?
That's a big question. So I've learned that I'm a very, very passionate person as a coach, player, person. Like if I find something that I'm invested in, like I am passionate about that. Every single moment of it, I am putting effort. That's how I was on the field, like during softball when I was playing. Like every play, I needed to put 110% into it. Whether I completed the play or not, like I am going all out. In practice, I'm going all out. I'm going even 10 times harder in practice to make the game easy. Like so that's what I kind of figured out from a young age. And then moving into my coaching career, sometimes I get a little bit intense because I'm just passionate about the game, you
Mm,
know, and it's not that I'm like really yelling at people, you know, or like getting mad, you know what I mean? But it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
more so like I'm getting into it. I'm not one of those coaches that are quiet and stay like in my little corner sitting on my bucket and just observing what's happening. I'm 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 like talking it up. I'm cheering for my teammates. I'm trying to pick them up, and I'm cheering for like the girls that I'm coaching. Like just being, my passion like bleeds into coaching that I had for when I was playing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of tough sometimes because now as a coach, like there's kids that don't care as much as I care.
Yeah.
And and that like really just like it almost like hurts me a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Like I come across a few players that I notice like have the same passion and mindset that I have or that I had when I was playing, which is really nice, but not everyone cares that amount or in that way. So
Yeah.
the people that don't care as much, they could look at me and be like, "Oh gosh, she's like over the top. Like why is she being like that? Like she needs to settle down." Like, "No, I'm not going to settle down. Like this is a sport that I love and I'm going to be passionate and I'm going to be into it. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to tell me to settle down." But I do find it tough when there's kids that I come across that don't care as much as I care. And it's like it's such a weird feeling because I've heard people say like, "Oh, the kids are never gonna care as much as you care," but then I've also heard the flip-flop of, like, as a coach, you can't care more than them, and which is also I find weird. So I think a coach should always be passionate, but
Yeah.
at the same time, if kids aren't as passionate as you are, you have to find a way to get them passionate, or you just have to understand that this might not be their first sport. Like this might not be their number one on their list, so their passion for this sport might be a little bit lesser than something else that they care about, you know? So
Yeah.
it's just being able to come from a sense of understanding and that I can't make everyone care as much as I care, you know?
Yeah.
Especially at a high school level. It might be slightly different at a college level because you guys are all, like, collectively, like, in there and dedicated and came to that school and wanted to be recruited by that school because of their culture and how their team carries themselves. That's a little bit different, I feel.
Yeah.
But with high school and anything under that, I feel like it's a little bit different. You get such a wide range. So like I can't get frustrated when someone doesn't care as much as I do because
Mhm.
this is my number one sport. And
Yeah.
I think that's just the tough part about it. That I've kind of learned and realized that I need to be able to understand that a little bit more with different players that I encounter.
Yeah, I think you're finding a really good balance of in between because your passion is what made you such a good person, an athlete and a coach. And so
Mhm.
continuing that on, but also like you said, in the same light, because it can hurt. It can hurt because you love that thing so much. So watching someone else kind of take it passively or
Mhm.
just it's just not their favorite thing. It's like for some reason you sting a little bit. You're like, "What? I spent
Yeah.
my whole life doing this. Like this is the love of my
Yeah.
life."
Mhm.
So I like how you use that word because it almost hurts.
Yeah, it does.
But like you said, you get to stay in it and you get to find that balance and you some might think you're a little too passionate and that's okay. That is okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
What do you think you appreciate in the game more now than you did back then?
What do I appreciate now more in the game than I did back then? I just I think I appreciate more of the team bonding aspect
Uh,
of it a little bit more than how I did when I was growing up. Um, Even though I did love the team bonding aspect and everyone talks about, oh, like I made my closest friends when I was on a team, but like for me, yeah, I definitely have made friendships, but like my closest friendships weirdly like weren't from my sport.
gotcha.
So when I was playing my sport, of course I loved the team bonding and I loved like being with my teammates and like growing on that personal one-on-one level. But I cared more about the sport itself and how myself and
Mm,
everyone else performed. Like it wasn't like more of a selfish thing. Like I did care about how everyone else performed too, because that's what I was there to do. I was in my mindset, that's what my mindset was like, I'm there to play that sport. Like
mm,
obviously, like, I wanna make bonds with you guys, blah, 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 but I'm there to play. So that was my mindset, and now looking back at it, there's people that I know that are just like this from, bonding from their sport, and I think I kind of, I guess, I don't want to say miss that opportunity because I don't necessarily regret the way that I stood towards my sport when I was growing up. But I do feel like, yeah, I just do feel like that I appreciate that a little bit more, like being able to have those, like team parties and like being able to see all the girls like interact with each other and like seeing different friendships and relationships like grow because of the sport that they're in now. And then like a lot of them are close once they move on from high school, or like if there's any of the middle schoolers that I've coached, like and their friendship is like growing like as they're getting older and playing the sport together and playing on the same travel team and school team, and they're growing through that whole process. Like that I think is what I appreciate more about it, that I didn't necessarily appreciate as much when I was playing.
So, for our audience takeaway, we have one more question and then a fast break section. So, what is one thing you wish athletes, maybe your athletes, maybe you understood sooner?
I wish they understood that it's not that serious, in a sense of like, yes, you can be 100% committed to your sport, do all the things that you want to do, being involved with that sport, growing up with that sport, like just making it your life. But at the same time, like once you're out of school and you're out of playing that sport, it's definitely a weird feeling moving on from that.
Yeah,
And I think that while you can be so invested in one sport, I do think that athletes should get involved in multiple sports. For one thing, I think is missing currently. I think kids are just so involved in that one sport that they're doing that they're not venturing out to different things,
yeah,
which that's a whole different conversation I'm not going to dive into. Um, but that's one thing. And then like once they move on, like from their sport, and if they made that their entire personality, moving on from that is very different. And like I'm discovering hobbies right now that I never would have thought of doing. Like I recently picked up snowboarding in the past year.
mm,
So like so just being able to venture out and being able to explore your interests outside of the sport that you're dedicated to, because at the end of the day, yes, it is a big part of your life, but at the same time, it's not going to rule your entire life as a
yeah,
whole. It might feel like that in the moment, but once you leave it and once you're done with it, it's not going to rule your life anymore. And you have to figure out your path and what way you want to go down. And it might involve that sport, it might not involve that sport, but at the same time, it's just not going to be as much pressure as you're feeling at this moment. So once you move on from that sport, just being able to be like, okay, like I have an idea of who I am after that sport, instead of like figuring out that as you're leaving that sport. Get an idea of who you are while you're in that sport, because it really is not that serious. It's not going to rule your whole life. So,
way to wrap it up full circle, Bella.
Ye-
Okay, so let's go through this fast break section. Fun, quick, first thing that comes to your mind. So,
boy,
favorite thing to coach.
softball,
Okay. Favorite thing in softball to coach.
fielding,
Okay. Least favorite drill to run.
boy. Um, that's a tough one. Oh gosh, I'm blanking. Oh, I would say 21 outs would be my
Okay.
least favorite.
Have to look that one up later. All right. One thing every athlete should focus on.
They should focus on their purpose within that sport.
Something that instantly tells you an athlete is coachable.
Um, being able to take in the comments saying yes, coach, and then being able to put in the effort to apply what was said.
Agree. One word to describe you as a coach.
Passionate.
And then last but not least, something people wouldn't expect about you.
I can be a calm person when I need to be, but I feel like a lot of people don't see that side of me. I feel like that's definitely something.
She is calm, guys. She can
Guys,
be
I can be
calm.
calm, I promise, just not on a softball field.
It just turns like it can make you different. Like being around your sport, I'm like a totally different person, so
A
I
hundred
understand.
percent. Yeah.
Bella, before we close out, is there anything that you would like our audience to know, and how can they find you?
Yeah, so I would say, in the sport that you have now, I know I said don't let it rule your life, but still put in all the effort and passion that you have for that sport into it because there is going to be a point where you don't have it anymore. So that is what I'll leave the audience with. And then you can find me on TikTok and Instagram, Coach B Softball.
Thank you so much, Bella, for coming on. I think this gives people such a real look of what it can look like to keep the sport in such a real way in your life and the impact you can continue to make. So, if you like this episode and you know someone could relate, please like, share, and subscribe, and we will be back.
Thank you so much.